So all in all, I've almost written and edited. 2024 has almost come to an end, and this is my end of year review to sum up everything that I've written this year and the lessons I've learned from, I started the year by being more or less a full-time writer because I was studying writing at university in January, and I more or less wrote full-time, and that was such an amazing experience. It taught me so much. So, in January, I wrote in total 50,000 words on a manuscript that was a fantasy manuscript that is a spin-off of a series that I'm working on. And this was like the idea for this manuscript I actually got from one of the assignments because I studied a course called fantasy writing. And one of the assignments was to write a scene where, you would understand something, you would read between the lines and not say everything that happened, but the reader would still understand it. This was such a great prompt. And since it was in a fantasy story, I came up with an interesting idea that I'm not going to tell you because that would sort of spoil the story that I'm working on. But yeah, that idea sparked an entire book. I wrote the first draft of that book in January and February. So in 2 months, I wrote 100,000 words. And I guess this was possible because of the fact that I was more or less writing full time. I was studying writing. I had a lot of time for myself to write, and I had, I talk on this channel, I talk a lot about productivity and the fact that I write every single day. And here, this actually paid off a lot because I was able to write for somewhere between 2 and 4 hours each and every single day. I took my writing very, very seriously, and that paid off. It was amazing to do that. But I also, at the beginning of the year, whilst doing this, I had realized that I needed to have more or less a system to make sure that I didn't burn myself out creatively. Because when you have a lot of time to write, it's very easy to think that, okay, and now I'm going to sit down and write all day, all the time. But that in itself can lead to burnout. So you have to have some sort of balance in your life. And for me, that meant that I did my morning pages, I did journaling. No, that's the same thing. And meditation, and I made sure to work out a lot because that clears my head. That works for me. And for you, I don't know what works, but be mindful of that if you're doing something similar. And during January, I was not only January and February, I wasn't only writing the first draft of this fantasy manuscript. I also edited the first book of the series that is connected to the spin-off. And I hope that book will be one of the books that I publish in 2025. At least that's the plan. That book is called The Forbidden Circle, and I guess I'll talk more about that in another video, but I'm super excited. But simultaneously, I was doing the finishing editing on that book, and during this time, I hadn't decided whether I wanted to go with trad or indie publishing. So I actually sent The Forbidden Circle to here in Sweden, we don't send it to agents. Instead, we send it directly to the publishers. And once you've been published, probably have a few books out, then you can get an editor in Sweden. So it's a bit backwards from what you guys are used to. But I sent that one to publishing houses and just, had to let it go and not think about it for a few months. And in March, I edited the nonfiction book that I wrote fall 2023, and that is a nonfiction about writing and productivity that I hope to finish soon. But I have so many projects going on right now, so I don't know what to focus on, but I need to make a decision about that very soon. Yeah, I edited it, and then I sent it to my beta readers and to an editor to get some more outside feedback, because it is very, very hard to just do everything by myself. So I need external help to see whether, what's working and what's not. In April, I finished the last touches of editing The Forbidden Circle. So yeah, now that I look at my cheat sheet, I realized that I did not send it in February. I sent it to publishers in April. And if I remember correctly, I also sent another manuscript to publishers in April, and I will get back to you on those ones. And during the first half of 2024, I was still studying. I spent a lot of time writing, and I also had essays and stuff like that I worked on for school. I I had been like toying around with the idea of indie publishing for a really, really long time, but I never took the step to actually like make the enough research and stuff like that. So just before the summer, I decided to like just dip my toe in and try. So I ended up indie publishing a collection of essays that I've written over the years. It's available on Amazon for print and as ebooks everywhere here in Sweden. It's not available in English yet, but I will translate it at some one point or another. But this was like me trying to see if I could do it myself and like what the process would be like. And it actually wasn't that hard. It wasn't as hard as I thought it would be. So this was a great learning for me that I did just before the summer. And also before I got back to work again, I spent a lot of time building up my new website where I have all the courses for writers. It's in Swedish so far. I don't have a collection of classes in English yet, but I start by focusing on here in Sweden, getting feedback to see what to improve, and then I'm thinking about maybe launching it a lot wider later. But that also took a lot of time for me. Come June, I kept on editing different projects, but I also started outlining 2 new stories that I had ideas for. And this is when I started working, and I started working full time again, which meant that, 8 hours a day was spent working. And then I started writing in the mornings again and like trying to find a good routine that would work for me. And in July, I moved to Amsterdam with my partner. That was such an amazing time. We've spent the almost entire summer in Amsterdam. And during that time, I had just read the book Story Engineering by Lisa Kron. And I decided to write the first draft of a romance novel using like the framework from Story Engineering because I wanted to learn how to write better scenes that are more like stronger and more suspenseful, a lot better. And using Lisa Kron's framework was such a great way to create better scenes. I will link the video to where I talk a lot more about how I use scene cards in my writing now and what I learned from it. I'll link it somewhere up in the corner and down in the description box. But using the framework from Story Genius, actually, like it takes a lot of time when you have to plan, like using her framework, each and every single scene has to matter and not just matter for like this plot and story. Like you have to think through a lot of things that I maybe usually don't think through until I start editing my stories. Usually I do that work in the editing process, but here I wanted to do it upfront before starting to write everything. And yeah, it was very, very learnful. Like I learned a lot from that experience, and I definitely recommend that you read our book. But it did take a lot longer to write the first draft of the romance novel that I call Walk It Off. And I basically like wrote that July, August, and October. So it took 3 months to finish the first draft of that story. And in November, I wanted to write a nonfiction, the first draft of another nonfiction book that is connected to the first one that I wrote last year. And like the plan is for those books to be around 50,000 words. So doing the first draft during NaNoWriMo is quite perfect because then I will get the work done fairly fast. And I spent the entire of November writing 50,000 words and finishing my first draft. I was really happy that I wrote that much. Like I went from writing super slow during the summer to actually writing quite a lot in November again. That was great. But when I write that much while working full time, I have to cut back on other things. Maybe I can't hang out with friends that much, or like, something's gotta give if you want to write that much. And now, whilst filming this, it's December, and I have gotten feedback back from my editor, my beta readers about the manuscript that I wrote in January and February. So I'm currently editing that one, thinking about how to what feedback to take into account and what I don't want to change, because I have some really big decisions to make when it comes to that manuscript. So the story, like everyone loves the story, but there are a few things that I need to fix for it to become as good as it can be. And yeah, I guess that sums up my entire year. So all in all, how much did I write? Now I'm gonna count. I have written down so I wrote, like, the first book that I wrote, the fantasy novel, that's around 100,000 words. So 100,000 words. And the romance novel, the first draft of that one is around 66,000 words. And then I wrote the nonfiction during NaNoWriMo, that one is 50,000 words. Whoa, so when it comes to first drafts, I wrote somewhere around 216,000 words. Whoa, that's a lot. And when it came to editing, I edited, so the first manuscript that I edited was around 75,000 words, and so was the second. Another one, the nonfiction one, was 50,000 words, and I've written that another one was 50,000 words. I'm actually not sure which that one was, but that's 250,000 words. So all in all, I've almost written and edited 500,000 words. That's insane. I've never written this much in a year. This is completely insane. Like, wow, blown away. But this is what you can do if you put your mind to it, and if you make sure to have like habits that support your bigger goals. I want to talk a lot more about stuff like this in 2025, like how you can actually set goals that you can achieve. And I have also like spent a lot of time reading. I've been reading a lot of books about productivity, but also a lot of books about writing and how to improve my craft. And that is something I want to share with you guys as well, to talk a lot about the books that inspire me to become a better writer. And next year, a lot of my focus will be on editing and like finishing up the manuscripts that I have written now, and to make a plan for my indie publishing journey, like when to publish what and where and all of those things. And like, should I publish it in Swedish only in the beginning, or should I translate it so it can reach a wider audience straight away? I don't know yet. I don't have the answers, but I will have at one point or another. And another thing that I usually do at the end of the year is so-called a yearly review. And then I go through like batch of questions that I answer to myself, and at the end I set goals for 2025. And so some of the goals that I've set for 2025 is to publish multiple books, to finish writing the first draft of the Forbidden Circle series. So there are 3 books that I haven't written the first draft of, but I know sort of what they're going to be about, so that is something that I want to do. And I want to work more on this YouTube channel and make it grow, make it better and bigger. And I need your help for that. So please, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up, leave me a comment, and tell me about your goals for 2025. And tell me how your writing went in 2024. Did you write as much as you set out to? And yeah, I guess that's all for this episode. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you had a productive year. And if not, make next year an even better one. Talk to you soon. Bye.